Yes, this is the same horrible story arc where they tried to make Nightcrawler the Pope. Let's begin. We start off with Nightcrawler going on about how religion causes more death and destruction than cancer, which anyone who has opened a history book or a medical textbook knows that, well, disease kills a lot more people than you expect. As in, we will have entire wars break out, and then disease will rear its ugly head, say, hey, the wars you fought, not enough, I'm gonna kill twice as much. World War I and the Spanish flu are two massive examples. The Church of Humanity crucifies a bunch of mutants on the lawn of the Xavier Institute, where we try to get some attempts at humor with Jean Grey acting like nothing is wrong with telepathic contact with a human nurse who has never had telepathic contact until this moment. Seriously, X-Men? Shouldn't this be like job training if you're going to hire a human nurse? Nightcrawler's internal narration is not great, mainly because it makes him out to be an alien who does not understand humanity or a Bible verse regurgitator. And when he's regurgitating Bible verses, more likely than not, the citations will be wrong. There's also scenes like this where he refers to Annie, who was their human nurse, as the enemy. Where do I begin? No wonder nobody likes these people. While we're in the med bay with Angel's blood transfusions, yeah, his blood can heal other people. I'm going to comment on the X-Men uniforms. They're trying to take inspiration from the X-Men films that were coming out at the time, the original X-Men trilogy. The problem is that it doesn't translate well into comics, and I also don't like the original X-Men trilogy uniforms. The X-Men trilogy also didn't like them either because they would discard them in favor of different uniforms going forth. Using the whole telepathic mind reading thing, they find out that the Church of Humanity is responsible, and Nightcrawler coincidentally dealt with the Church of Humanity at one point. After some dickery from Scott, we learn that Nightcrawler had renounced the priesthood. Okay, let's begin. Nightcrawler began training as a priest sometime before this arc. The problem I have with it is that he was still in the X-Men books. Why do I have a problem with it? Because realistically, the Catholic Church takes the whole becoming a priest thing to be serious, as in you're not going to get a certified ministry in like 15 minutes like some Protestant sects do. What you need to do is this whole several years of studying scripture, studying the canon laws of the church. At one point, liturgical Latin was a thing, but I'm not sure that's still around, but you get the idea. You can't just do it on the side. It takes years of formation to become a priest. But then again, I could discard all that because Nightcrawler really wasn't a priest, because, well, as we find out, it was all an illusion. Yeah, this is going to make even less sense as the plot progresses. Turns out the abandoned Catholic Church is actually a mutant morgue or abattoir. One of the Church of Humanity's priests pretty much says that their intention was to make Nightcrawler the Pope, which I'm going to put this off. Keep a pin in this. At the Church of Humanity's headquarters in Montana, the Nega Pope, I'm going to call this the Nega Pope because this is the mastermind, and not to mention we are not exactly given a name. The Church of Humanity's grand scheme is to reveal Nightcrawler to be the Antichrist. After he gets elected Pope, they are going to make his image inducer fail, and then he'll be revealed to have the face of a demon, and therefore he'll be the Antichrist. And the rapture will happen. Okay, let's begin here. What? The rapture? For starters, the rapture is not Catholic dogma. You will not find the rapture in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. If you do, it is probably a long paragraph denouncing it as an American heresy at worst or nonsense at best. Yet Kurt goes on as if it was actual Catholic dogma. It is not. Oh, in order to fake the rapture, the Church of Humanity has been altering the communion host in order to make people explode. Where do I begin with this? First off, when you're dealing with communion hosts, they're not made in one central location and shipped out all over the world. So the Church of Humanity better be more than just this one place in Montana. There's also the 23 autonomous Catholic churches who may or may not give communion the same way the Latins do. Case in point, the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church rips up the body, puts it in the blood, and then they distribute it via spoon. The Maronites, I think they use the unleavened bread as the Latins, except they dip it in the wine and distribute it. As for the Syro Malankara, I think they use leavened bread. I use body and blood and bread and wine interchangeably because that's what Catholics actually believe. The bread and wine become the body and blood. It's not a symbolic outpouring of grace or a remembrance, it is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. Unlike what the comic makes you implies, because the comic uses represents. Seriously, comic, this isn't hard to research. Oh, and as for the leader of the Church of Humanity, it's this random woman who just spouts Bible verses before blowing herself up. Frankly, I'm the type of person who is willing to completely overlook all the inaccuracies this book makes on Catholicism, but this is the part that really annoys me. This woman was apparently a nun who was raped by a priest and then deposed after the priest accused her of infidelity. The problem with this is that the book tries so hard to get you on the side of this former nun, except she tried to commit genocide of over 1 billion people. Bottom line, this comic sucks. Nightcrawler comes off as a preachy alien detached from humanity who quotes the Bible at all times, or a fool who doesn't even mildly know his own religion. It's like he was written as two different characters in one. The Church of Humanity's plan to make Nightcrawler the Pope is built around false premises. Frankly, they would have an easier time just putting Nightcrawler through the seminary and making him a bishop and then a cardinal, because it's easier for one of those to get to the papacy. Hell, you don't need Nightcrawler for this plan. You could just use an image inducer or your own shill on whoever gets elected pope. Nightcrawler is superfluous, and it led to this organization's demise. The Church of Humanity in general comes off as a bunch of crack addicts who cooked this scheme up in a drug-induced high on one afternoon that they can't remember. They also tried to make Negapope sympathetic, despite being an unrepentant architect of genocide. And not to mention, the Negapope is a flat character. This is the first time we see her, and then they just expect us to be sympathetic with her. This is why the Chuck Austen run sucks. Nothing makes sense, and nobody knows why. That's it for this video. Please consider liking, subscribing, and supporting the channel on Ko-fi. Goodbye.